The horrors of a first job.
I don't have to be the one to tell you just how insane and ridiculous today's economy has gotten at this point. At the time of
Literally,
me
bro.
making this script, they just revealed the Steam Machine prices a few days ago. And
It's
could
like
anyone
3
please tell me
bands,
why they're
bro.
charging a whole band for the base
Oh, shit.
model
I ain't gonna
without
lie,
the
y'all caught
controller
me. I'm
included?
lying.
I have never seen a company sell a console, something that normally comes with a
Yeah,
controller
without
by
a fucking
default,
controller.
proceed to make that aspect an entirely separate purchase with a jolly smile and thumbs up on their face. And if you do end up getting the highest
Crazy,
storage
bro.
model with the controller included, they're asking you to spend a cool $1,400 on the whole thing, as well as your arm,
That's
leg,
wild,
and right
bro.
ball sack. The funniest
Right
part
ball
about this
sack.
whole
Might as well
launch
add
to
the
me
left.
is the fact that you can get a pre-built PC from Walmart with the same price, and it'll absolutely obliterate the Steam Machine in terms of specs and performance.
Like
With everything
what?
increasing in cost from gaming and consoles to gas prices, you're gonna end up needing to find a
Wow.
way to earn some kind of money. And a canon event that every person is going to have at some point in their lives is to get a form of work experience. Because even though the majority of people
working right
nowadays
now.
start having crazy panic attacks at the sight of a job application, you still at some point sooner or later are gonna have to put on that uniform and cap and clock into work at 8 in the morning with 3 hours of sleep and a fresh cup of espresso from your local Starbucks.
I
A
ain't ready
majority
for
of
that,
you
but
watching
that
this
is
video
true.
has had at least some type of first job. Some common examples I can think of off the top of my head are fast food like McDonald's and Chick-fil-A, retail like Walmart and Target, and other miscellaneous positions like working at a movie theater or arcade. Now,
I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I could ever work at a fast food like restaurant, bro. The disrespect to, or like even if I were to be having a bad day and I have to pull up to work at a fast food restaurant, bro. Come on, dude.
originally, this video was gonna talk about the terrible things you experience during a part-time job in general, but I was like, wait a minute. Some people have never had a part-time job before, but everyone remembers the first ever job they had during their lives. So in this video, I really wanted to dive in and talk about both the horrors and experiences of what it feels like to have a first-time job. For me personally, my first ever job was at an indoor water park, and the amount of stories I have from that place are so insane, I could legitimately make an entire video series on the whole thing by itself. But first things first, we need to rewind a bit, because before you're able to actually put on the uniform and black pants to head to work, you first need to officially receive the position to begin with. I deadass think applying for a job at this point in time is arguably the most egregious part and is way worse than actually doing the work itself. To say it's simply difficult to land as much as an interview with any kind of establishment in today's age is a major understatement. Nowadays, whenever you apply to any sort of part-time job at all, you'll either get completely ghosted from the company or receive an email/text saying another candidate was chosen for the position.
Like,
Oh,
what,
3
bro?
weeks later. I am genuinely convinced half of the people checking these applications take a single glance at that shit and throw it in the trash bin immediately without a second thought. Explain how I'm the exact target demographic you advertise for on your website, and I got denied for somebody who has the
Nah,
exact
I would
opposite of
literally
what you're
be
looking
pissed.
for. At that point, just say we're not looking for anybody to hire at this moment,
I'm
instead of giving
saying.
niggas false hope that they'll actually be able to get a summer job and not worry about asking your friend for the 100th time to pay for the food bill. Especially with AI being in every corner of society right now,
What
half of
is
these
this?
systems
You're
that are
just
implemented to
wasting
make
water.
everyone's lives easier just makes me want to crash out on the nearest person in my vicinity as a way to release all my pent-up frustration. I remember last summer I applied for a remote internship near my city, and tell me why as soon as the day arrived for me to have my interview, the first thing I saw on my screen was an AI program acting as my interviewer. It kept telling me to say specific phrases and responses to reply to its questions, and every time I finished responding to anything it said, I would get the most annoying and fake-sounding employer voice replying back to me. You want to guess how long it took for them to come back with a response on whether they chose me for the job or not?
How long? Let me
Psych
know.
trick question. These niggas never came back to me and completely ghosted me. You're telling me I went through all the trouble to get this interview and answer all these questions just for an AI to be my interviewer and for me not even to get the job at all? Man, that's some bullshit, bro. I know that companies like money too much and want to save costs by using stuff like AI to make the interview process go faster and efficiently, but if the AI is gonna constantly make mistakes and end up hiring nobody at all, even if you are qualified, then what was even the point of implementing it to begin with? Now, I'm assuming most of you had an in-person interview for your first job, and if that's the case, we can move on to the actual training/in-person interview. I remember the night before my first job interview, I was extremely stressed out because the friend who had recommended me to apply had told me they hadn't hired a new employee employee for 8 months straight. I knew that when tomorrow came, I needed to give the most legendary and flawless performance possible because there was way too much stuff I needed to buy that summer, and I refused to let my chance slip by me. Come interview day, the manager who interviewed me was this short brunette in her mid-20s, and for my first impression, she seemed pretty chill and nice. She was guiding me around the park and telling me what I'd expect to do while I was actually working the job. After we did the tour, we went to her office where she asked me some more typical questions like my strengths, weaknesses, how many days of the week I was available. Nothing out of the ordinary for the most part. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but a majority of the part-time jobs that hired kids like me only really care about the availability and scheduling you have to offer. They don't really give a shit about your personal interests or tidbits about yourself as long as your availability is beneficial for them. You could tell the person interviewing you that you write celebrity foot fetish fan fiction during your free time on the weekends, but as long as you're available 7 days a week to come to work, they'll still hire you on the spot. After answering all of the questions, she told me to wait outside in the break room while she reviewed everything and told me her decision. And after about like 5 minutes, she came outside and told me, "Congratulations, you're hired." Not gonna lie, at that moment, I wanted to start jumping and celebrating at the fact that I got the position, but I had to compose myself and act nonchalant. My first day on the job for training was gonna be the following day, and I was super excited that I was finally gonna start making some money and actually be able to pay for my own stuff now. If only past me knew of the pain and anguish that I'll be facing for the next coming months.
We have got to the point where...
Now, if you know anything about being a lifeguard, you know that your vocal cords by the end of most shifts will be completely scorched to hell. Combined with the fact that being in a water park also means constant loud waves and splashing, you have to yell even louder just to get other kids to stop or slow down. During my first training day, I ended up yelling so much because of the kids running or just being stupid that I had a sore throat for the rest of the week and could barely muster any strength in my voice. Moving on to the next part of having a first job, co-workers. I'm gonna be completely honest. Unless someone I know is working at the same place that I'm working at as well, best believe I'm giving the most straight and uninteresting responses to every single person that I don't know trying to talk to me. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some chill and cool people you'll end up meeting as co-workers. You may end up finding some lifelong friends or buddies just by being at the same place together and discovering both of you have a lot of things in common. At the same time though, half of the people that you're gonna be working with have a personality more dry and unseasoned than a 2026 NBA YoungBoy album. I legitimately think a majority of them never really developed any sort of social skills because the amount of hoops and bounds I have to leap just so I can comprehend anything they're saying is absurd. There was this one guy I worked with at my water park job that I deadass believe had a personality custom made by ChatGPT. Anytime we were assigned to the same station together and I tried to have any sort of conversation with him, it literally felt like I was talking to a brick wall the entire time. Every single thing that came out of his mouth would sound so robotic and monotone that I genuinely would have rather cleaned the bathroom than try to talk to this man. Now you may be thinking that he just didn't want to reciprocate the energy back because maybe he wanted to finish his shift and just go back home. And if that was the case at all, it would have been fair and understandable. But there would be days he would come up to me first to still choose to talk like an AI chatbot with voice responses.
Buddy, get away from me.
The worst part of having coworkers during your first job is something I like to call coworker bias. Coworker bias, like the term sounds, is a scenario when one of your coworkers gets unfair treatment that makes their job easier while leaving everyone else to pick up the slack for them. And I'm so serious when I say coworker bias is one of the worst things you can experience during any job in general, but especially during your first one. Because when you first start entering the work environment and are just understanding all the cues and routines for the first time, you don't really expect or notice anything unfair or weird until you stay there for a long time and start to pick up on certain patterns and behaviors that make you realize that not everyone you work with gets the same treatment despite having the same position as you. I myself have two examples of this that I want to talk about real quick. At my water park job, my general manager was the absolute worst when it came to coworker bias. And for the sake of the video, let's call her Emily. I would say Emily was decent and was super chill for the most part, but the first thing that really ticked me off about her was how much she would just let certain people do literally anything but their actual job. If you happen to be a good friend of hers or she just really liked you enough, she would deadass let you sit in her office and just be on your phone for the entire shift. I remember this one closing shift where she had two of her friends who were also my coworkers just sitting in her office and gossiping / laughing around for 6 hours straight. I didn't see either of them during rotations a single time and was wondering the whole shift what they could possibly be doing for hours on end. And anytime I got on my break, I would see them in my manager's office just giggling at whatever they were talking about as if they didn't have anything else to do. Fast forward to closing time and everyone was getting assigned their cleaning stations to wrap up for the day. I ended up getting assigned to clean and mop the seating area, which looked as if a Category 5 tornado had swept through the building and landed directly in the middle of the floor. Seeing as how we wanted to finish fast and go home anyway, I thought it'd be a great idea to ask my manager to tell her coworker friends if they wanted to help me clean. Because as far as I could tell, neither of them had done anything at all, and I thought they had deserved at least some sort of work to compensate for that. So I ended up asking, yo, is it alright if you could get them to help me clean the chairs? Because the rest of us saw that they weren't really doing anything the whole shift, and I think it could cause us to finish faster. But I kid you not, my manager ends up telling me to stop being disrespectful to her for asking her that question. Not wanting to escalate the situation, I just ended up agreeing and going to clean anyway, but in my head, I was resisting the craziest urge to not crash out and turn the entire park into a bomb crater. How am I being disrespectful for asking them to help when they were getting paid to not do jack shit anyway because you let them in your office all day and just let them do whatever they want? That was honestly one of the biggest turning points that led me to end up quitting eventually. I'm not working somewhere where the manager has that much of a bias towards her own friends and would end up letting them just get hours worth of pay for doing nothing at all. The next most important thing to talk about when having your first job is dealing with customers for the first time. Now, it doesn't take much research or digging on TikTok or YouTube to find some of the craziest customer interactions you've ever seen in your life. I will never understand the concept of getting mad at an employee for something that is the company's fault to begin with. One day I was working concessions and this dad came up to me and asked me why his pizza didn't have any pepperoni on it. Now at my job, you were able to order pizza from the local place by going up to the concession stand and asking the person up front to write down your order so they could place it for you and deliver it back to your seat. And you were required by rule to show the customer what his order was before placing it to make sure that you didn't mess up anything that he may have said. I told the guy that I showed him the order I wrote beforehand to make sure it was good, and he told me it was a-okay for me to call it in. So if the order was wrong on the pizza place's end, why did you come up to me to complain about it when you were the one who agreed to place it to begin with? He then proceeded to get mad at me because apparently I messed up his order on purpose and he wanted a refund. My nigga, I didn't even make the pizza. What did he say ask me for? Eventually he asked me to speak with the manager, so I just went out back to call her out of her office so she could deal with this issue while I waited behind her waiting for this guy to just go back to his seat. That situation I just described is one of the many instances of bad customer experiences that I've had throughout all the part-time jobs that I've worked at thus far. Thankfully, I've never truly had any egregiously bad customer experience moments, but like I said, you'll find hundreds of them all over the internet without looking that hard. The thing that I was most unprepared for when it came to working a job for the first time was waking up at the crack of dawn to get my parents to drive me to work. Just like how terrible waking up for school is, going to work in the morning is something every adult on the planet constantly dreads on a daily basis. I always made sure to schedule my shifts on weekends or Fridays because there was no shot I was gonna work after school on a weekday. So best believe I'm overly good on having to deal with kids and customers for another 5 hours. The last thing I want to talk about is the entire reason that you want to apply and work at a first job in the first place. The money. Something that is always guaranteed will be the fact that you will spend your first paycheck on straight bullshit and not learn how to actually manage your money until later on. I don't exactly remember what I spent my first paycheck on, but I do know that I made like around $200 and immediately bought some new shoes. Although a first job has lots going for it in terms of overall benefits, there's also so many terrible experiences that everyone having one will end up going through. But to end up working at a better place in the future, you're gonna have to experience all these hidden events no matter how stressful or annoying they are. Let me know what your first job or general work stories are in the comments, and with that, I'm gonna catch y'all next time. We
W video.